It's a photo registration. Let's get it going. All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Good, let's go and get started. All right. First of all, next week, spring break, no class all week. Beware of that. Try to take a break for a day or two. without computers or technology. I'm going to try my best to do the same. If we're going to start out looking at what you did last week, some stuff you guys did. First of all, the Pixlr Lab. We'll look at some before and after. Then we'll look at some before and after on your photo restoration. If you've yet to turn in your photo restoration, you still got time to do that. So just make sure you upload it. So let's go ahead and go over, like, for instance, here's a before and after. They decided to do the red eye manipulation, which is popular in photos. So we get people to get natural red eye in any type of photo. There's an after. Let's choose a couple more. This one chose to do a, let's see, eye color, it looks like. Eye color change. Actually put a little heart on their eye, it looks like, on that one. That's okay. That was the original. That's the modified. Pretty cool. Let's see here. Pick a couple more. We'll look at the Tom Cruise. It looks like we have did a different slant on it. Here's the Tom Cruise eyes. This is the before, looks like. This is the after. Lighten them up a little bit. And we'll do one more. These two here. I'm guessing this is the before, this is the after. So here is a before shot of some brown eyes. And here is the after. Again, using hue saturation to do that like we did in the class. Next, we'll look at some of the restoration photos. All right, so here's a before, which is a common type photo you got around the house. Maybe it might be, let's see if I can bring this down a little bit. Stored in a book or something, and it's really not in too bad a shape, really. So let's see what they did with it afterwards. There you go, not bad. Next, we've got, let's see, let's do this before, and here's an after. Before and after. Pretty good job. But again, a lot of could be using a clone stamp tool or healing brush or both for that one. Before and after. Got a lot of cracks and creases, a little yellowish, maybe sitting in the sun for a number of months or years. Got rid of the cracks, left the yellowish tint, which is fine, but much cleaner look overall than the original. So got rid of all the little cracks and creases here. Good. So I'm guessing this is before. I'll find out. So pieces missing from the picture. Ben's here. Face is in pretty good shape. There's post. Pretty good. Pretty good. And let's see, here's the before. This water had water down. I remember a student bringing me this one. He was going to scan it after class last week, and there was water damage to the photo. There you go. And this is the first time doing photo restoration, so good job. It takes a lot. First time you're doing it. Let's see here. Before, pretty good shape there. Like at the beach, family outing. And an after, cleaned it up a little bit. The original wasn't too bad, but it was A lot of spots, looks like, in the image. Could have been coffee got splattered on it or something. And there's post. Cleaned it up. Looks good. Is a student here that did this one tonight? No? Yes, you are? Cool. Is it? And so a lot of cracks, crevices, pieces missing. Let's go next. Really good. Good job. And so you want to tell us what you used on that to clean it up?
Well, I mean, you can't here, but I actually colored it in the foot.
What now?
I colored it in like
you colored it in the foot?
Yeah.
Is this one of these you?
Yeah, I'm a smaller one. Yeah. That's like all
right, this is you?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I just use a clone stamp for most of it. And then
yeah. And who's this guy?
my older brother.
Your older brother. Cool. Well, let's look at it before. It's a lot of work. So, pretty good crease there, right in along your chest there. Yeah, foot's pretty much missing. And then a lot of cracks there, but really did a good job filling it in. I couldn't tell unless you told me I didn't. I can. If I'd just seen this by itself, I wouldn't have been able to know the difference. So, about how long did it take to do that?
I mean, I've used Photoshop a little bit.
Right.
Maybe an hour and a half.
Right. And again, you've used Photoshop for a while.
Yeah.
No, like I told you guys last week, those of you definitely new to Photoshop restoration, his hour, if you're brand new, might take 6-7 hours, maybe even more, depending on your comfortability with Pixlr, with Photoshop to use that tool. So here's a before. Is this person here, this student here that did this? No? Okay, so this is actually in pretty good shape. A little dark, but beyond that, not too, a few cracks here, along the edge, but really not too bad. See what they did the after. So it's cleaned up the cracks on the edge. It looks like it brightened it up just a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it brightened it up just a hair, maybe. I'll kind of focus over in this area where the word NO is and see. Yeah, brighten it up a little bit. So again, can take time to do it. So anyway, if you've not yet submitted yours, definitely do so. Again, next week, spring break, you can submit it then. Have fun with it. Some are taking, probably took longer than others to finish, but you did a good job. Now we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to show you some panoramics we're going to go over. This was actually panoramic from my spring 2013 class. And this student did a panoramic of the inside of their living room. See if I can go back to blow that up a little bit so you can see it. So basically on this one, I had the tripod against the wall and initially kept the tripod and the camera where it was, and then just took multiple shots. And you'll notice in each shot, put himself in each shot, spliced it together in the tool we'll talk about this week. There's a Photoshop tool you can use called Photo Merge, and then also there's one called Dermander that I like to use. It's an online tool, but pretty cool little trick, right? And to do, and you can do this by yourself, by the way. Doesn't take a lot to do. And you can put yourself in a panoramic in multiple different locations. Again, just using the inside of your house. We could do this outside as well, multiple spots on trees, tree lines, or something like that. This semester, actually, they're pretty good example, so I thought I'd show you all the ones on this one. And we'll do like a slideshow or something to make it a little easier to see it. And we'll go full screen. Slideshow. Like that. There it is. Pause it. Okay, so this is just like anybody, neighborhood, did a panoramic, elongated panoramic down the street, multiple shots of this photo, of this scene. Most panoramics are anywhere from 3 to 8 to 10 photos, depending on the width of your panoramic. This is a pretty cool shot. I think this is actually maybe, I don't know if it's rock cut or what. It looks like it might be rock cut, maybe where the water's frozen over and there might be some snow on it possibly. But that's a pretty good, that's probably about 6 photos. Yes.
So when you take a panoramic picture and you say you're taking more than one shot, are you just taking the picture and just keep moving it?
Yeah, we'll talk about it more in detail. These are just some examples, but I'll get into the detail later on how to do it. Yep. Next is inside of one of the local, maybe Coronado, it looks like, possibly. I think that's what that one is. Pretty cool. And you'll notice when it gives a wide enough panoramic, you get a kind of, they call it a fisheye effect to the room that you might not ever get otherwise, because you're literally, or over any distance, especially if you're outdoors, you'll see the curvature. If it's wide enough, you'll actually see the curvature of the earth in that photo, possibly, depending on the width of it. Here's another one, corner shot of the outside of the Coronado. And I believe this student actually was up on one of the floors, caddy corner from the Coronado, and took this shot. And so again, about 6 to 8 photos on this one. Another angle. And this is actually from the kind of where the road segues and the student's house on the left to the rest of the residential on the right. So farmland shot there. And back to that one. I think I might have a few more after that. Yeah, there's one courthouse, and then just a good, nice winter scene. This is a really wide shot. I think this took like 8 to 10, about 10 photos on this one. Okay. So, and we'll get more into detailed description, but basically when you're taking your panoramic photos of your crude image up here on the board, you're going to, ideally, you can do this standing up, by the way, without a tripod. If you have a tripod, that's great. If you don't, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you stand still. And basically what you're doing is when you're holding your camera, you're going to basically stand in one place. And we'll pretend this is the rock cut here. And I will basically just pivot at the waist and take different photos. You'll notice, and I'll also keep it the same level as I go across. These little dots represent an overlapping of about 15 to 20% over each image as it goes across. And that's so you can have coverage. Where these lines are right here are just the entire frame. One thing you want to be careful is in between images, you wouldn't want to take it to where there is a pole or a tree or something in this region here. You want to stay away from that, just so the line break doesn't take place in the middle of a tree or in the middle of a utility pole. And so you can see here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images. And I suggest when you take a panoramic and most of your cameras will have, your phone cameras and your regular cameras will have a panoramic setting. Do not use that setting. It'll just normal outdoor photo setting. So it could be auto, maybe. It could be using your white balance settings like we went over, your ISO. Whatever it is you would normally set to get good exposure. And then you're going to take a succession of photos. And I suggest for each photos panoramic to take at least 3 sessions. So like for this one here, with 6 photos, I would end up with 18 photos per session. And so this is actually just one session, these 6 photos. Now we're going to talk about the tool that you can use. We're kind of end or reverse tonight. I'll show you a lot of examples first. We'll end with the actual discussion stuff. The tool I like to use, there is the step-by-step uses photo merge in Photoshop. But if you don't have that or don't want to use that or don't want to come on campus to do it, I've used this for years called Dermander. Dermander allows you to upload your panoramics and automatically stitch them together, and then you can share them immediately on social media. Once you learn how to use Dermander and you have the images, it takes a total of about 4 to 5 minutes to upload those images, name it, and share it. So I'll show you how to do it real quick. So first of all, what you do is you get your images. I've already got some on my Mac here that I did before class. Here is the folder of the images. There's one of these here I'm not going to use, which is this one here. I decided not to use. And so we've got, let's see, 7 images in here. And we'll look at them within the computer here so you can kind of see what these photos look like. So it starts with 15, it goes down to 21. So there's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I believe this is a picture of a student gave me of a apartment complex, kind of looking at it from a upper view. So what you do first is, and this is being recorded, by the way, you can set up your own account. It doesn't cost anything to set it up at dermander.com. And the links, by the way, are in our course this week. Click on Create. And you have 2 options. You can do a 360. Now, 360 is a 360, literally standing in one place and taking multiple photos. For normal 360s, you're looking at about 18 to 20 photos for a 360. I had a friend of mine in college that was a soccer player that in the summer, he had a 35 millimeter, really expensive one with the telephoto lens and everything, and was a pretty good photographer. Anyway, just for fun one summer, he did a panoramic of the entire campus. It was like 15,800 photos at the end of the semester. At the end of the summer, he started in June, went all the way to the end of August, and literally went out every day after practice with his tripod and camera. Went all over campus, and at that time, the only tool you had to use for panoramic was Flash. And so he basically hard-coded the panoramic into Flash, and you could go anywhere on campus, click on a door, go into the room. Anyway, the school ended up using it. Much harder to do, by the way, than what we do now, but he did a good job doing it. But basically, he would be at the front of a door of a school building with his tripod, and then just do one of these slowly, making sure it's the same level. You don't do this with your camera. Just keep the same level as going around and overlapping the photos. And about 20 photos per. And then he'd move about 10, 15 feet, do the same thing. On doors, what he did was he had a little red dot he put on the door, on the actual image for that door. And the people would tap on the door, and it would bring them into the next segment of panoramic for that room. So anyway, you have 2 options here. One is 360, one's wide angle. You'll be using the wide angle, and you'll notice the wide angle is a little over the 180-degree mark. But I always tell students, like I kind of drew up here on the board, so roughly you'll notice this one is not a 180. So you're looking at roughly maybe a 160 degree, roughly at that. So wide angle's wide angle. It's just not a 360. So I'll go and click on this one because that's what this one is. And by the way, you have to have at least 2 images at least to do this, which you definitely should with Panoramic. So I'm going to select all these images, click open. Immediately after it uploads, you'll see the results. And again, it stitches it all together for you automatically. Pretty cool, right? And again, you go full screen. And I can use the mouse, or you can use the keyboard to do it. One last thing you've got to do is you got to go over here into the options and click upload. And you got to name it. So I'm going to name this one Web225 Pano example spring 2018. You don't need to put location. You don't need to put anything else if you don't want to, but you do need to title it and then update. It's going to prepare the images for uploading. Once it's done, it looks like this, and you just got to click confirm. Now it's starting to upload, and just don't do anything else on your computer while it's uploading or your tablet. Once it's finished uploading, it gives you, it says this panoramic has been uploaded successfully. Click here to get the embed code, or to create another one, click here. Now, if you click here to get the embed code, it literally takes you to a spot, which is JavaScript, that you can paste in this code into a website, and you have your panoramic for folks to play with immediately. The one I like to use is just click on the My Account and go to My Panoramas, and then you go down to the find the one that you just did. This is the one I just created, this one here. And you'll notice in here, there's a little chain icon. There's an edit icon. If I click on the chain icon, the little link icon, it gives me a URL. That URL, I can copy that, and I'll just bring it into another tab here to show you. And I can put this on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And when people click on it, it immediately loads that panoramic. So literally within a couple minutes, you've uploaded your panoramic, and it's a totally free service. This guy created this a number of years ago. He keeps it updated. He's a professional photographer. He's also into web design. Really good job. And so this is one I recommend to use. You can use Photo Merge, but this is the one I recommend highly to use. So the other thing too is when you're in this environment here, you can tell, the reason I like it is, especially if you're sharing on social, you can actually see how many people has viewed it with a little icon here. Like an example was we did one for the testing center a while back, where I went into the testing center and we did a panoramic of the testing center for students to know where they're supposed to go, how they're supposed to, what rooms they're supposed to go into, yada, yada, yada. And so they basically use this to do that. We use the Demander to do that. And it is streaming. You'll see it popping up saying streaming. It's actually streaming the photos live from the server. That's why it looks so smooth. And this one actually is doing a full rotation within that room. So they kind of literally see a point of view as if they're standing in that testing center themselves. And so that's Demander. I recommend using it for creation of your panoramas. And you can just, in the example this week for week 9 or week 8, I have in here the in notes. We'll go over in a second. Not yet. No, not that one. In your take home, I have a link to Demander, so you can use that and play around with it. And I recommend using it. It's definitely a lot of fun to use. Questions on Demander? Again, from the homepage, you can see what the most recent ones are and kind of see what folks have been doing, and these are all over the world. Folks submit these from all over the world. They got some pretty cool ones. This one here I was looking at earlier. It's a really unique structure. Isn't that really cool? It's all glass panels, corner triangular glass panels. It's got like a loft area that goes out into a bigger balcony. Some type of rock formation. I don't know if it's in where this is located at, actually. But anyway, you can look at all these and now what people have done with theirs to kind of get inspiration. And we'll look at some other ones here in a second. Okay, so let's go to, we're going to back, I told you we're going to do a kind of reverse tonight. I want us to go to the in-class exercise next, which is, we're just going to look at some photos, some panoramic photos. The first link is a digital photography school on 20 great stitch panoramic examples. The second is a Getty Images search, which a Getty Images is a really good site for inspiration, for photography inspiration. And the last is a really cool one I found on U.S. Parks Panoramics. So the first one we'll look at is this one here, the 20 great stitch panoramics. And so I'm going to kind of, instead of clicking on each one of these, I'm just going to make my monitor a little bit bigger to where we can see it this way. There we go. That'll work. And so we'll look at it this way. And so there again, this one here overlooks the valley. It's kind of foggy out, kind of like we were here a couple weeks ago. Really cool effect with the sun behind the clouds and kind of a reddish tint. And we're just going to kind of look at these underwater, inside of a library, using a fisheye lens for panoramic. Riverside of Cologne. This is a zoo. Mosque. Grand Canyon. The Beijing Olympic triple jump panoramic. And again, this photographer took this panoramic, or took this photo in photo succession, like you can do continuous photo succession, and then stitched them all together to do a really cool panoramic of it. Sunset at Howell Park, Buenos Aires. Another art gallery, like the Alps, with the bathroom. This is pretty cool. And this is a C5 Galaxy panoramic of actually one of the largest planes ever. The Air Force uses for cargo loading. And it can actually drive in their tanks and planes and helicopters, a whole bunch of cool stuff. World War II Memorial, Washington, D.C. Bumper-to-bumper car race here. The Audi 3.2 Quattro race. These guys are literally bumper-to-bumper as they go around these turns on about 95, 130 miles an hour. Crazy, right? All right, so that's that one. Next is these Getty Images. Now, Getty Images is a good resource for you to just find, again, photo inspiration. You can type in anything you want to. I typed in panoramic city. I love cityscapes. I don't know if anybody else likes cityscapes, like driving in Chicago, or going to New York. We just went into Chicago over the weekend. And if you've not got a chance to see the new Apple store when it moved from Michigan Avenue location to right on the river, it's all glass. So the walls are glass. The ceiling isn't glass, but everything else is glass. And it's 4 stories and pretty awesome, right on the river. And so anyway, when we were driving into Chicago, you know, you see like this one here, kind of the right one there, the cityscape of Chicago. And I'm a city guy. Even though I was raised in the country, I was born in New York, so I kind of have a natural gravitation towards the energy of a city. And so I love cityscapes. So these are just some good examples of cityscapes. We'll try to blow some of these up a little bit. Like this one here, I really like. Again, it's just a simple park view of a cityscape. And you'll notice most of these, this is actually New York State from Manhattan Park view, kind of viewing in from Central Park. And again, Central Park, you think of New York City as being kind of grimy, and it used to be really grimy. It's cleaned up quite a bit, but Central Park is beautiful. It's just really, if you were to get dropped in Central Park in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of some trees, you probably think you're in a forest somewhere. That's how large it is. And so Central Park is a really good example of a really cool view of a cityscape, but at the same time, kind of a natural, artistic view of nature. This here is the Gold Sunset Coast, reflecting off the water. This is in Queensland, Australia. Queensland, Australia. Really beautiful country. I've never been there, but pictures are awesome in Queensland. This is a view, panoramic view of a sea against sky. And this is in Miami, right off the coast. And you'll notice it's probably in a helicopter view, I'm guessing, or a drone view. I fly drones now for photography's sake. Drone photography is awesome. I mean, you can really get some really cool drone shots. I thought about if you guys want to, I don't know if you guys want to or not, but I thought about bringing when we have nice weather like we did today, and we'd have to do it when it's sunny out. So maybe having to come a different time or whatever. But I thought about bringing my drone one night and having you guys take it out. We'll take it out like near the baseball diamond or something and show you some of the things you can do. Would you guys be interested in doing that? Seeing drone photography? Maybe being able to control it or something? That'd be kind of cool, right? Yeah, I might do that. I got a smaller drone too I thought about using for that one. This one here is a panoramic, kind of like the one we just did. And notice it stitched it together and it also is playing it for us. This is in Paris. Pretty cool there. And this looks like it's a 360. This one here is in Shanghai. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drone photography in Shanghai. Shanghai has no limitations on height of drones. In the US, it's 400 feet. They've actually had drone photography in China, specifically in Shanghai, up to 5,000 feet in the air. These drones have flown to get this aerial views, which are just crazy. Here is a New York City, Manhattan skyline view from one of the corners there on 42nd and 5th. And sun's overlooking a building here, just breaking into it. But you got the cabs here, you got the hot dog stand, you got the pizza joints, you got the sky rises. So everything about New York, you got that one. This one you'll notice though is more of a vertical panoramic, which you could definitely do this week if you want. Is a vertical shot, and we'll look at some examples of what some vertical shots here besides this one. This is the San Francisco Bay Golden Gate Bridge. If you've never been to San Francisco, recommend that as well. Beautiful, beautiful scenery, beautiful people. It's a great place to go. Really nice place to visit. Lower East Manhattan. This is actually from a view probably of a bridge or a subway going over the Manhattan city. This is a guy that's got a rough life. He's in a pool relaxing in Barcelona, looking over the skyline. Yeah. But really cool view. This is an empty floor, it says, with a modern cityscape to the sky. And this is just an empty brick floor overlooking the cityscape. This is the Riddarholmen Church in Old Town, Stockholm, Sweden. Looking overview that. This is kind of a cool one too. It kind of follows the road a little bit. This is in Thailand. Pretty cool. This one here is Berlin summer sky in Berlin, Germany. The cityscape with a TV tower at sunset. And right here is a TV tower you can barely see right there. My mouse is. Blow it up over there. It's right there in the middle. It's literally right in the middle of the sun, so it's kind of hard to see. This is West University place in the U.S. This is Central Park, Manhattan sky overlooking Central Park. Berlin skyline. Dubai. Dubai's got some pretty awesome photos. If you ever seen photos from Dubai, it's really crazy. Some of the photos you get in Dubai. Some of the buildings are just crazy. Some of the photography that's been taken there is really, really great. Another Shanghai. This is London Bridge. The beautiful London Bridge. Shanghai again. All right, so that's good. So again, just remember gettyimages.com. I'll kind of go to the home page of Getty Images just to show you what it looks like on the home page for you. So as soon as you get to the home page of Getty Images, and by the way, you can sign in. It's totally free. One of the cool things about Getty Images is that it does have music. And what it is if you're in whatever mood you're in, you can go to this music page and say you're in a, you know, kind of a, want to get some stuff done. You're in production mode. You want to get some things done. You can come over here and just start playing the music and it'll play. And a lot of it's eclectic music, just, you know, music by itself, nothing, no words or anything. What's cool about it is they have this mood one that you can select. And so say, you know, positive. And once you select the music, then you can go in here. They got royalty free, which unlimited uses for $50. The free usage is you get ads that drive it as you're watching it. But like say this one here.
Getty Images.
So it's music like that. It's just, you know, just musicians do make money off of it. So if you're know people are musicians, you yourself are, it's kind of a cool way to upload your music, and you can make money off of it, by the way. Let's see, the video side. This is what they've added kind of new. It is videos that they've taken from all different genres. Some are news videos, some are professionally taken videos. You'll have a lot of Olympics in there because the Olympics just coming up. And then editorial, it goes into, you know, everything from sports, entertainment to news. Like if I go to entertainment, it'll bring in all the latest news in the last week, and along with pictures, creative, again, by categories, like, you know, faces is one of the categories. And again, these are photographers that focus on faces. And you'll notice each one of these, I'll click on any of them. Let's click on this guy here. Over on the right side, the reason I want to show you this was, this all goes back to the photographer. Not all. The Getty Images gets about 5%. But a large image of this guy eating baby food, $575. And all but 5% goes back to the photographer. So you can, by the way, as a photographer, even though you're a novice photographer, you can set up an account, upload your images, follow the rules in Getty, and start making money. Yeah, why not? Right? So besides finding images, you can also upload things like music and images both. It also has a highlight of mobile apps they have available for iOS and Android, which I recommend getting. The mobile apps are a little bit more immersive when it comes to the videos and the images and the music. And then it gets into also the prices for most of the images that are on the site. But as far as just viewing it, doesn't cost anything. To set up an account doesn't cost anything. It's whenever you wanted to use an image. Some of these are royalty free, meaning they cost nothing to use, or they use comp images, low resolution. But I do recommend it, gettyimages.com, just for general photography inspiration. Sure. All right. Next, This link here is a cool link I found here in the last week. This is panoramas of USA parks. So 106 images here on this page that can be downloaded. When you click on these, by the way, it downloads it as a zip file to be viewed. And I'll show you here a couple of them. I'll just click on a couple of them as we go down, and then we'll look at them from the Mac. So it doesn't waste the bandwidth on the website. It literally just downloads these images, and then you can view them offline. So we'll just do 5 of them here. There's one I was looking at earlier I really liked down lower. It's this one here. All right, we'll start with that one. Okay, so let me open all these up. Inside of the image or the zip file will be 2 text files. One is the actual information about the image and the author and contact information, and then a README on how to install this, how to basically use it if you're not familiar with, most of you are familiar with unzipping a file. So anyway, I'll go ahead and open up this one. Pretty awesome, right? And so, again, it doesn't tell us how many pictures, but if I was to guess, at least probably 8 to 10, maybe at the most for this one. But as you can see, if I blow this up, really, the reason I want to do it is to show you from left to right. Sometimes you can note it, sometimes you can't as you're going across, especially if they've taken, like, say, for instance, let's say they did an overlap right here. It might be off a little bit because of this antenna, but they didn't. So you just want to be careful of that, or like right here. Like this one does some double shadow. It might have been there. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'm at a pretty high percentage up zoomed in. Let me go back to the original on that. So that's that one. Next, even a wider one, probably 10 to 12 on this one. It does have some reason photographers do this, by the way. See how this tree here, kind of up close, and this over here. These two here, this right here and this right here, give the entire panoramic some depth to the photo, right? It's not just a flat panoramic. So by adding stuff in the end on the sides of your panoramic that's close to you, really brings in kind of a 2D, 3D kind of effect, even though it's only a one-dimensional, two-dimensional image. That's something to think about. Again, this one here, if I was to, this right over here would be the kind of the up close kind of and personal photographer. Everything else is kind of way out there. Again, this kind of brings some depth to it. This one here, all these trees up here are pretty close, and then this one here, panoramics really focus on this over in this area here. This is a really wide one. Maybe 15 to 18 photos possibly on this one. But now the wider you get these photos, the harder it is to print it out to where people can actually make sense of the panoramic because it's so wide. If that makes sense. So you want to just make note of that, kind of beware of that. I'll give you some dimensions tonight when we do the take home to kind of help you with that, and how many photos I think you should take for your first time around. What the width of your photo and everything. Let's see. This one here. That's a cool one. right, so that's pretty cool. And again, we just touched the surface, scratched the surface on this one. But yeah, we did 5 of them, 106 of them on this page. The cool thing about this site too is they do have include in here 360 panoramics as well, if some of you are interested in that. And the 360 panoramics, basically, again, when you click on these, it's going to download a zip file, and then you're able to view it via panoramic players, like the one, the Commander player. This vertical one I wanted to show you, though, because it kind of shows the different ways to view panoramics in the cities. We'll just view it this way. We won't download all of them. Again, when you think of panoramic, a lot of you think of panoramic as being horizontal, but it can be vertical. Like when I think of this, I see this, I kind of think of like the clock tower we have out there in Rock Valley, kind of between the campuses here. Spanish Square in Spain. And also, too, I didn't mention a lot of these will give demographics or stats on these images as well. Like this one says it's 5 images stitched with the Auto Pano Giga, which I've never used that site. Let me see what that looks like. If it's still live or not. Looks like a redirecting. So it's like some type of panoramic type of immersion tool. So it tells you how many images, what tool was used, the camera. This is a Canon EOS D7D 18 to 200 millimeter lens, and it even has a location on the map you can click on. Tells you the download size, how many people have visited in the last 239 days, 93 days, 10 over the last 10 days. Gives some other images from that photographer. So this is GarciaTrips.com. We'll just pick this one here just because it's right there and I'm showing it to you. So this is an actual trip that this person took and goes through step by step the different photos that they took and where they were at. Russell's Hall, this was 6 images. Let's take this one. 4 images on that one. This is a building in Dubai. This is 7 images stitched together. And this one, I like the fact that they tell you what they use to stitch it together. I like that. This one used a Microsoft Research Image Composition Editor and a Nikon D300S. Stock Exchange Tower, Montreal, 3 images. Nikon Coolpix. And we'll end on this little alley in Bronican in France. This was a panoramic. Does not say how many images, but it's a cool image, or how many images were taken. This is a pretty tall vertical one. This was used Auto Pano. This is in Lexington, Kentucky. Does not say how many images was used on that one. And it'd be kind of cool. I recommend, I'm not done myself on all these, but to click on these links that they use to stitch them together. You might find another tool like Commander that you might like. Most of them doesn't cost anything to use. Frost Bank in Austin, 4 handheld images stitched together in Auto Pano. That seems like a popular one people are using. We'll end on this one here. It's a cool little house. It's like a gingerbread house, but very vertical. This is in France and been viewed 1,851 times. Ooh, that's kind of a cool one. Rainbow in Switzerland. So anyway, we can look all night probably on all this, right? It's a good site though. It's a great site, and it's just tons of different. I mean, literally probably thousands and thousands of images on here, totally free to view Panoramic. And from that link on this in class, you can view that. So in this in class exercise, what I want you to post, if you haven't already done so, what about panoramic photos catches your eye? Just go ahead and tell me in a sentence kind of what it is that catches your eye about a panoramic. What is it about it? Is it the lighting? Is it the dimensions? Is it the how you feel when you look at a panoramic? No wrong answer. Just kind of what is it that catches your eye about it? And then jot that down.
Do we go where it says submit assignment to put that in there?
Do I know?
We click on submit assignment?
Yep, submit
And we
assignment
just
and then
type
type
it in
in
there?
that sentence. Yep. All right. All right. Hopefully you're finishing up. Let's go ahead and do now let's talk about what we normally start with, the discussion on the topic, which is panoramic. So why create panoramic? Glad you asked. So when you are driving down the road, you're walking down a path, you are on a trip, and you see this wonderful vista, this wonderful viewscape, you take your camera out and you want to take a photo. Problem is you've only got a little bit of frame to take that photo. And that's where panoramic comes in, because it helps you take the entire width of that scene using multiple photos that you can use. You don't need a special camera to do this. Any camera will work, even though this article talks about using wide angle lenses, things of that nature. You don't need that. So one of the solutions is panoramic that we're going to play around with this week and hopefully have fun doing and playing with it. So to resolve it again, panoramic, we can take a photo with that using multiple images. And here's some rules to go by when you're taking panoramics. Basic approach. So this type of photography, there's no need for special camera, a tripod, or even a panoramic head, which is a head basically that rests upon your shoulders that causes the camera to kind of rest there and move fluidly. You'll see folks that take photos for movies or for videos use those panoramic heads. You don't need that. However, there's a need to hold it steady for sure when you're taking panoramics. And then make sure that you're turning to the left or right to take the photo. So depending upon, I go left to right myself when I take one, but you could go right to left if you wanted to. Either way works. And it says in this article, 25 to 50%. I usually do about the 20%, 25% at the most, for sure. And when you're overlapping them, again, you're just overlapping them as you go across all the way to the end. And so try to imagine the camera is on a tripod, even though it's not, and keeping the camera as steady as you can. So we want to make sure your camera's not doing one of these things, that you're not going up and down with it. You're trying to keep it as steady as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. The stitching tools that you use, like Dermander and Photoshop, is smart enough to stitch them together and put them together for you. Take as many photos as you need to take the panoramic with the overlapping of 20-25%. Remember to ensure the last photo overlaps with the first. This is if you're doing a 360. If you're not doing a 360, that's not going to be the case, and we're not going to do that this week. Now, you could do one this week and play around with it and upload it to the render. I don't care, but I'm not going to have you turn that in. Software to use. We'll look at some steps here for Photoshop, doing the merge utility, or photo merge utility is what it's called. Photoshop Elements and Photoshop both have a photo merge facility that when you upload the images, it stitches them together. And generally, when you upload an image or images into photo merge, here's what it's going to look like after Photoshop merges it together. We'll say there's the same image that I have there, 5 or 6 images, whatever it is. It'll kind of look like this when it stitches them together. And then what you have to do is you have to take your horizontal lasso tool, your crop tool, and crop that portion of the panoramic that looks good, basically, that's uniform. And all this stuff here is, it's the stitching part, stitching them together accordingly. So, advanced approach goes into, on this article, composition and framing. Don't really need to mess with that one because you have to use a panoramic head for that. But here's some really cool tips for camera settings and exposure. So, good rule to observe when you're shooting panoramics is to keep the camera settings as far as possible to the same for each shot. I suggest as close as you can. It's hard to do around here sometimes, a low wind area if you can. Because leaves and stuff will cause issues, you know, not that you can't fix, but might do some post editing. So 3 primary settings you need to focus on: exposure, focus, and white balance. Exposure is a main consideration if you're using a point and shoot or your camera phone. Make sure on this one is kept reasonably constant. In fact, what I generally do is I will take the camera and go from left to right in the scene that I'm getting ready to take a photo of, or multiple photos of. And I'll find one area that's the darkest in that scene. And that's what I'll use to focus and create all of my settings. So my focus, my contrast, my brightness. So if you're using your ED value, you can do it there on that light setting or the darkest setting. Same with white balance, play with that. So let's pretend for whatever that this over here, this frame here is the darkest out of all of them. I will use that area. I'll point my camera there and get my settings for that for that unique photo. Okay. Then I'll do it on all of them. Make sense? The reason for that is if you do it on the lightest setting, the darkest you're not going to be able to see. Okay, so the darkest seems to be the way that works for me the best when you're taking panoramics. So exposure, went over that. Exposure EV value is definitely one you'll need to set. Play with that. If the camera does have manual exposure, which some of yours does, basically what that's talking about is using your white balance for using the card, the white card, or maybe using, if it's a sunny day, using the sunny white balance. If it's a shady day, using the shady white balance. Generally, third paragraph, choose a photograph that will be in the middle of the brightness range. That's what I talked about up there. Aperture priority, if you have that on your camera, you can set it to that, and that'll take care of your shutter speed. on aperture priority, which in Panoramics, it seems to work pretty good on the A mode for aperture priority. If you don't have aperture priority, I would set your camera to auto mode and then play with your white balance settings, and try not to do any type of zoom on your camera. Try to be as natural as possible with Panoramic, because the whole idea behind Panoramic is getting that wide angle effect. Okay, so if you do have to focus, make sure it's very minimal on your focus or none at all. And then white balance, again, playing around with white balance. You can take it off of automatic and play around with it according to the weather that day. So if it's, like I said, if it's dark and cloudy, you might use a shady white balance possibly. Lenses you don't need to worry about. Panoramic head you don't need to worry about. So again, it has a little cheat sheet here at the bottom on camera setup for Panoramic. Setting the ISO to manual, so maybe at like 100. I would start out low range, like 80 to 100. Manually set the white balance to whatever the setting is in that area. Manual focus, and I would say no focus, no zooming in anyway on the focus. Metering I wouldn't worry about, but if you're going to do aperture mode on your camera, you can set it to like a 5.6 or 5 or f8. That's going to help with the shutter speed, and it'll just make it a richer kind of effect as it goes across. And then the EV value, you can change either the plus or minus that we went over thus far. That'll help as well. And then remember, this is 30, 50% overlapping. I do like 25% is what I recommend. Okay, and so that's some tips for you. Again, that's the third article and the only article in the notes section. So now let's go to the deed for this week, which is taking Panoramics. So in this file needed in 8 take home, I'll open that to show you what it is. This is a Panoramic step-by-step on how to use the photo merge in Photoshop or Photoshop elements. I believe it works the same way. It's pretty simple to do. You just follow these steps if you want to use Photoshop, or at least I suggest if you have Photoshop, you can do it this way, and then also do Dermander both. Just do both of them. Because in that Dermander site, by the way, you can download that image once you're done to your desktop, and then you can upload it. But do both. I recommend doing both and definitely having fun with both of them. So as far as once you get your image down on your computer, when you want to upload it to your photo site, I suggest cropping it at a max of 6,000 pixel to 3,000 pixel. And by the way, I think I put one up here. I'll put one up here to show you what this would look like. And it doesn't have to be this exact dimension. This would be max. Okay, so let me bring it down to 5%. So that's a max. It could be, you know, something, if you want it, it could be something like that, which in this case, I'm just playing with it. This one's 5980 by 1560. So 6,000 is the width that you want to stay around. And then you might play with the height possibly. And again, depending upon you, if it's vertical, it's going to flip those numbers. And so it'll be, instead of what I had earlier, it'll be the 3,000 width, 6,000 height, which would be more of a vertical panoramic. And again, these are just very, very, very rough guide. That's kind of a normal kind of guide for panoramics, is a 6,000, 3,000 or 3,000, 6,000. Anything within that range. And like on this one here, you would keep the 6,000. And let's pretend that you're going to crop it to like this. So you still have the, you know, close to 6,000 and 1,600 width. So does that make sense? And so the main number is going to be both the same as a 6,000 number. 6,000 on either the width or 6,000 on height, depending upon if it's vertical or horizontal. If it's vertical, it's going to always be 6,000 on the height. And if it's horizontal, it's 6,000 on the width is what you want to start with. All right. And then you'll upload it to week 8. If you decide to do the, and then also, by the way, you're going to email the Pano to this email address here, attach that JPEG from step 2, put in your last name as a subject line. And I've already created the album for us to use. And by the way, while you're in this album, if you wanted to go back and look at prior semesters, you can just go in here and look at them and just click on, like, say, spring 2017. What did their panoramics look like? You can go in there and look at them. Okay. And so if you want to look at those, you're definitely more than welcome to do that. And then the Demander site, I videoed how to use that. I recommend signing up for that and using that. On the Demander site, let me go there real quick. It's still up here. When you're in one of the images that you've taken, like I got out of it. So when you're in one of the images, like this is the one I think I just did earlier. So let's go to pencil. So when I right click on this image, I'm going to go save as, and I'll put it to my desktop so you can see it in a second. And bring it down. So that's actually the entire panoramic right there. That's, you know, it looks much wider on the screen, but that is actually the entire panoramic from left to right. So let's find another one like yeah, let's do this one here. That one. There you go. That's a better example, probably. So you see, it downloaded the entire panoramic. All thing the website's doing, the Demander website is playing it. It's playing that panoramic to where you can do that with it. Right? That's all it's doing. It's just making it easier to play that panoramic. Make sense? So it's a great thing to use because now that when you've uploaded your panoramics here, it's actually here for you to share however you want to. You can share it, like I said earlier, to the by clicking on the link. It'll give you a link you can share on social media if you want to. And by the way, if you wanted to share this, if you use Panoramic through Demander, not only when you submit your work this week, I know down here I just have you say done, submit done. But if you use Demander, do me a favor. Also, I think I give you guys a text entry. Yeah. So if you do me a favor, if you will submit not just done, but a link to your Demander page or your image that you took, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. Make sense? Questions on that, on the take home? So again, make sure on the sets, and here I don't give instructions on how many sets, but I recommend, like on this one here, 5 to 6 images is good. If you go beyond that, you're probably a little too wide, possibly. Trying to get a little too much. But 5 to 6 is what would be a good number. A max would be like 7 or 8. 3 sessions, what I mean by that is when you get back to your computer, out of those 3 times that you've taken the photo, you might end up only liking one of them, right? So it's always good to kind of take 3s of everything when you're taking photos. Worst case, you just delete it from your camera anyway, so it's not going to hurt anything. All right. So once you've taken the photos, then you can bring it into. If you don't have Photoshop, don't even worry about doing the panoramic file needed document. You can just go right to the Demander site, upload your images, figure out which ones you like. Then that's what you would submit in here, as well as upload. When you download that panoramic from Demander, you'll upload that same image into your photo set, and you'll also email it on number 4 to that email there. Questions? Yeah.
So if we're doing Photoshop, we don't need to do the reminder.
You don't have to, no. Because you're going to upload either way. You're going to upload to your set, and you're going to email to the Pano site that image. So either one you want to use doesn't matter to me. I would say again, do both. If you have Photoshop, definitely do Photoshop and do Dermander. I think you'll like it. If you don't have Photoshop, you have Dermander to use. Make sense? And you might do both and decide I like Dermander better. Possibly, I don't know, depending on what the end result looks like. Because it does all the work for you in Dermander. You know, Photoshop's kind of fun to do though if you've never done it before. Just to be able to see that little stitching thing, what it does with it. I think it's kind of cool to see it. But anyway, I'm weird. And so anyway, any other questions? Any other questions on that? All right. Well, have fun with and be thinking of too. This is one thing I did mention. Be thinking of a because we all drive by them all day long and all week long. We think, yeah, same old thing. Like, you know, but they're really cool panoramic sites that we can take photos of. An example is when I drive to work every morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I drive by, go off Mulford here to Perryville. And a lot of times in the morning, there's a lot of fog that's overlooking the soccer field and the baseball diamond. And that looks really awesome, that fog does. And there's, you know, many times I've said after I've driven by it, already at work, man, I should have stopped taking a photo of that. But it's too late. By the time you come back at lunchtime or after work, fog's gone, right? And so those are the kind of the spots I'm talking about, which would be really cool panoramic spots. Anybody think of one, by the way, before we leave, on one area that you drive by every day that you're like, wow, that would be a cool place? Yeah.
Linden Road and Alpine.
Linden and Alpine?
Yeah, the field there.
Yeah.
The sunrises.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a cool spot. Anybody else think of a spot? Any parks or parks or places like that, like Rock Cut or whatever? Rock Cut would probably have some pretty cool spots, I'm thinking. One of the students took one out on, I think it's on Alpine, and you guys will laugh at me, but I can never remember. My kids used to go there all the time in high school. It's a park that has all the paint all over the, thank you, the Aldine. That's a really cool one to take as a panoramic as well. That graffiti that's all over that, it's really awesome to take. Now, probably you might want to watch what pictures you take. You might not want to make a panoramic, but it's kind of cool to at that different vantage point. By the way, talking about Aldine, before we go, I took my drone out there. You know that launch pad they have? I call it the launch pad. It's a parking lot that looks right at the wall I just mentioned, right, with the graffiti. There's a parking lot you can park in as soon as you get into Aldine to the right. And anyway, I got my drone right there and took off. There was nobody there. It's early in the morning. And I got to go right over the where the graffiti was. And then there's like it looks like it's not a bridge, but that's the best way I can explain it. Basically, it's where the drone went under this bridge, I'll call it. And there's some more graffiti on the other side I'd never seen before. It was kind of cool. It was artwork of different families, it looked like. Had some animals on there. Anyways, on the other side that I'd never seen before, but I could only see it because the drone was there. So anyway, so that would be a cool spot. There's a number of other spots in Rockford for sure, or the Rockford region. So, but the main thing is have fun with it. Take at least 3 sessions of, at least 5 to 6 minimum. And then if you have Photoshop, do the photo merge, but also do Dermander. Do both of them. If you don't have Photoshop, don't worry about it. You use Dermander. All right. And if you find another tool, by the way, when you're looking at that website, we saw all the USA parks and stuff that's better than Dermander, let me know about it, and I'll put it on this one for future semesters to use. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, go forth and have fun. And by the way, next week is spring break. If you're like me, at least choose 2 to 3 days of no computers, very little cell phone usage, and spend time with your family and friends. All right? And enjoy it. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
So when I take my picture, I'm going to start from the left. I'm going to take a shot.
Right.
Take
And if you didn't check in, please come check in.
That's what we're doing?
Yes. Overlap at 20-25%. Yep. Correcto mundo. How you doing? Good, good.